NewGenGamers.com.
And it has really great game design. It's a platform action game, and you jump along the different platforms and try and defeat your enemies, gain power-ups, and at the end of each level you fight a robot boss who will grant you a weapon if you beat them. Well, not grant you, you take it from them.
Yeah.
And then you have the power-up that they used, which
you can use to defeat other bosses.
Yes, each boss has a weakness to a particular weapon from one of the other bosses, so if you know the order, you can defeat the bosses rather easily by going through the game through the right order.
Now, that is another thing that the Mega Man series added to games is non-linear design, where you could choose which section of the game world you wanted to start in.
Yeah, you pick the level that you do and could do them in any order.
And added that element of strategy to it.
And also replayability, because you weren't forced to play through the same level every time you died. If you kept dying on a certain level, you could try a different one for a little bit and maybe figure it out.
Here I'm fighting Flash Man.
Yeah, he's kind of a douche.
Yeah, he's also one of the easiest bosses to beat. Usually most perfect orders go. Flashman is one of the first ones you beat.
Wipe him out.
It's either that or Crash Man. It's kind of your choice.
And I love that music right there. So
the power-up one. Oh, look at that.
Oh, a message from Dr. Light.
That was really excitable, Rod.
I love Dr. Light. What can I say? Look how happy and nice he is.
You get item 3.
So Dr. Light created Mega Man. His arch nemesis is the evil, sinister Dr. Wily, who has a curled up, evil, thin-looking mustache, and he's also bald, which is probably why he's such a dick.
I'd agree with that.
So that's your protagonists. And this game runs off a password system, which a lot of NES games did. But the NES also introduced the battery-backed save feature for the home consoles. So some games would have a small lithium battery built into the cartridge that would allow you to save the game.
Like Legend of Zelda and its sequel.
Yeah, Legend of Zelda was a famous one, Final Fantasy, and some of the others that would not have been possible to obviously play through the games. And the password systems would have been probably,
so complicated.
Very complex for that much information. So it became a good choice, didn't add anything extra to the cost for consumers, and added a lot to the flexibility of game design. So this game uses a password feature, which makes sense because all it needs to remember is what levels you've beaten, what bosses you've beaten, and what items you've gained.
Yeah, it's rather simple.
Whereas, something like Final Fantasy needs to remember exactly how many experience points you have, which bosses you've beat, which dungeons you've gone in, how much gold you have, every specific item. A lot of different information. And the lithium batteries held up for so long. Some of them are still good to this day, and in fact, most of them are.
Yeah, they don't tend to go out. Those early ones were really, really solid. And
so oftentimes, you can take a classic game that you've had for 20 years and still have the same game saved on it, which is remarkable.
And I'm surprised that more games didn't try to utilize that, but you would see that more in like the Super Nintendo Genesis era, where game save batteries became a lot more common.
Well, I imagine it was a cost that was incurred by Nintendo, because another thing we haven't quite gotten into with Nintendo's licensing was not only did they require that they allowed you to make a game for them, they had to make the game cartridge. Everything had to be done in their hands. So they had to provide the batteries, of course. So, they probably added that into the royalty costs for the third parties. So maybe some companies viewed this as a cost that they didn't want to add to their overhead. If you're doing a simple board game adaptation, you don't need a battery. So I'm sure cost came into play there.
If you can remember his pattern, you can beat him pretty easily. Sometimes he's a little erratic with it, but just kind of follow the flow of the conveyor belt.
I will do that.
That's just a tip to the viewer there.
I'm a viewer.
Yeah, I guess so. Now, I'll try to get through this without using the energy thing, but if I get too low here, I'm going to pop it since I got 2 of them, and there's no point in me not using them since we're not going to the end here.
That's right. Yeah, if you get too close to him, he'll start jumping around, so if you keep your distance...
Well, you can also play that on him, too, because if you get him jumping too much, he won't be able to hit you with anything.
And that's another thing. All the bosses had different strategies. If you didn't have the right weapon to use, you'd have to figure out the right strategy to beat them.
And a lot of times they were really tough if you didn't have the right weapon. But if you had the right weapon, it was like 4 or 5 hits on some of them.
Yeah.
And that's like ridiculous level. Well, I think we've taken a pretty good look at Mega Man here. Mega Man 2, Mega Man series,
Yes, this is the second one. A aesthetic and slight improvement over the original. Better graphics, better level design, bigger levels, bigger bosses. It upped it all, more bosses. So definitely better than the original. And I'm going to say out of the series, the best of them. Out of the original NES version, because there were 6 built off the same game engine from the original Mega Man. I'm going to stick with number 2 as the best.
2
Ray?
would definitely be my choice for the best one. 3 comes a pretty close, but, it just... 2 had that something extra.
So, commenters, what do you guys think? What's the best Mega Man? I'm going to say we're going to get a lot of 2s and 3s.
That's what I'm thinking.
4, once you saw Skull Man and Pharaoh Man, it got weak.
Yeah, 4 was bad. I kind of liked 5, but the enemies got too weak.
They should have had Hamburger Man. I think that would have been a cool one.
And that might have been in the X series.
And another quick side note with Mega Man, they once had a contest in Nintendo Power to let a reader pick the next Mega Man boss. So, and I think they actually picked a couple. Nightman was one of them.
They also had one where you could design the enemies for Mega Man 2. They had a couple different contests.
So that shows the level of interaction that I'm going to call him punk rock game designer Kaiji Inafune brings to the table, because that kind of interaction was rarely seen, and especially from a Japanese company to offer that to Americans. So really cool. Mega Man, thumbs up. They should put him in Smash Brothers.
Damn right.
Just, I don't know why I threw that out there, but...
Welcome back, everybody. We are playing Gradius today, trying to put in the Konami code.
On the Virtual Console, and I don't know that it can be done, so we're just going to say screw it. But we wanted to mention the Konami code because this was the game that it was originally accidentally left in as a way for the developer to test the bugs in the game and to jump around in the levels and not get killed.
What will the future bring from Nintendo? More hits like The Legend of Zelda. Sports hits like ice hockey. Nintendo has the most video game hits like Hogan's Alley and Donkey Kong Classics, and more like Excite Bike and RC Pro-Am. And you can play them only on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Now you're playing with power.
NewGenGamers.com.